Chapter 9. Scared to Tears. Senior, how come I feel like these paper mannequins are looking at us? He-san grabbed hold of the wooden door, refusing to step into the room. I'm not kidding. Something must be wrong with them. Could it be that they're all living people playing dress-up? Fuck. I have a feeling they're all gonna move soon enough. The paper mannequins that had been touched up by Chen Ge using mortician's makeup had something weird about them. They were obviously inanimate objects, but there was a certain liveliness to them. Gao Ru-xie glared angrily at He-san. She thought to herself, why did I bring him with me today? Fear is contagious. I was not so afraid to begin with, but because of him, even I feel slightly affected. Do you mind keeping your opinions to yourself? If you give any more useless observations like that, I'm just going to leave you here. She was the first to step into the room to take a cursory look around. The windows in the main house were just decorative. They did not lead outside. Senior, let's go. This building is heavy with yin energy, and the place is sealed. The exit is definitely not here. The owner of this haunted house is a master manipulator who knows how human psychology works, so we have to act the complete opposite of how a normal people would. A place like this that does not seem to harbor the exit is exactly where we need to examine closer. Gao Ru-xie walked around the room, sending up wafts of air that caused some of the paper mannequins that had toppled to the floor to scrape unnaturally. He-san's heart was at his throat, still standing outside the door. But there's no hiding place in this room. You can see every surface. Where can the exit possibly be hidden? No hiding place. Who told you that? Gao Ru-xie stopped at the middle of the room, raised her fair leg to step on the red coffin. Come help me, we're opening this coffin. Open that thing? He-san's white lips were quivering. Isn't that a bit too disrespectful? You plan to spend the rest of your life in this haunted house. Under constant urging from Gao Ru-xie, He-san moved inch by inch deeper into the room. He made sure to stay far away from the paper mannequins. He bent over to grab one side of the coffin's lid. On the count of 3, pull! Okay. 1, 2, dong! Gao Ru-xie was only halfway through the countdown when there was a loud noise in the room. What was that? He-san's soul practically jumped out of his skin. Shush! Gao Ru-xie put her finger to her lips to have him quiet down. She looked around before her gaze eventually fell on the red coffin before her. The sound seems to have come from inside the coffin. When she said so, color drained from He-san's face. His Adam's apple trembled unevenly, and his hands, which were holding the coffin lid, were shaking like he was holding a hot iron brand. Senior, I beg of you, there's nothing here. Can we go now? Calm down. The sound only occurred when we planned to open the lid. Don't you think that's very strange? Senior, the coffin just made a sound. That's a hell of a lot more than strange. He-san's fear was greatly amplified by Black Friday. At that moment, he just wanted to leave as soon as possible. Think about it. There are only 2 reasons that a coffin could make a sound. 1, there's a worker hiding in it waiting to scare us when we open the coffin. 2, there's a hidden machine set up inside it, and activating it will cause some changes to this Minghun scenario. So no matter which possibility it is, this coffin is crucial to this scenario. If we wish to escape, we have to open this coffin. Gao Ru-xie slapped the lid twice, adding, Don't hesitate, just pull it open. Even though I have no idea what you just said, it did sound quite logical. He-san and Gao Ru-xie applied their strength at the same time, and the heavy coffin lid started to slide. When the coffin was a quarter of the way open, the ancient-looking coffin suddenly exploded with a loud bang without warning. Innumerable paper mannequins and paper money shot out from within the coffin, and a strange woman's laugh filled the room. At that moment, the main house door started to close on its own. Let's go before it's too late. He-san did not hesitate. He was close to the entrance, and in his hurry to escape, he had forgotten completely about his senior. He dashed to the door in several steps, but before he could jump through the door, the face of a woman flew in front of him. It was a death visage that was pale, exquisite, and breathtakingly beautiful. Fuck! He-san's first reaction was to raise his arm to punch at the face. However, the owner of said face seemed to have predicted his reaction because it easily swiveled away from his assault. Ghost! Help! He-san collapsed to the floor and half crawled, half ran in a random direction. He-san! Don't sprint around aimlessly! Gao Rushui yelled at the top of her lungs when she saw a red shadow follow He-san into the building he chose to hide in. The side houses are for the sons and daughters. This is bad. The place He-san has gone into was the living area for the specter before she died. Gao Rushui rushed outward, but she realized the door had locked. She banged on the wooden door, cursing, "Divide and conquer? Isn't this just a haunted house attraction? Is it really necessary to do such a sick thing?" The coffin had broken in pieces, and the paper mannequins littered the floor. Gao Rushui, who was trapped, had completely lost her collected composure. She punched and kicked at the door and finally got it to open 1 minute later. However, in that 1 minute, everything outside the main house seemed to have changed. "Xiao-san? He-san!" Gao Rushui shouted twice, but there was no answer. Other than the eerie background music, there was only the shuffling sound of paper money brushing against each other as her reply. "What's going on? The haunted house is only so big, so it is impossible for He-san not to have heard me, or did some accident befall him?" For a reason Gao Rushui couldn't explain, an image of a crime scene flashed across her mind. She trailed down the corridor and found her way to the West House by tracing her memory. Xiao-san ran in this direction earlier. As the old wooden door creaked open, the celebratory calligraphy written on white paper fluttered to the ground. Gao Rushui stepped into the room. The room was decorated as a newlywed room, but instead of red, the color of celebration, all the decorations were white, the Chinese funereal color. It was creepy to say the least. Where has he run off to? The atmosphere in the room was off. The only light source was the white lantern hanging outside the door. Gao Rushui stepped slowly forward as cold drafts blew in from behind her. Her exposed skin was chilled like there were small invisible hands in the air caressing her skin. The paper money crunched under her feet, and occasionally she would kick something hard that she could not tell the identity of because it was too dark. She gritted her teeth and powered on. Gao Rushui pulled the drapes in the room open to let some of the light in. The place was empty other than a bed that was covered underneath a mosquito net, as well as a set of bronze mirrors that sat facing each other next to the wall. "I saw He-san run into this room with my own 2 eyes. Only 1 or 2 minutes have passed since then. So he could not have disappeared so soon? Unless the exit is in this room and He-san accidentally stumbled across it?" Gao Rushui took a deep breath before deciding to perform a closer examination of the room. However, as she took the first step, she heard a second set of footsteps falling closely behind hers. "Who's behind me?" She whipped around, but she only saw a bronze mirror and her reflection in the mirror itself. Chapter 10. Mirror, Mirror. Phew, scared myself for no reason. Gao Rushui's chest rose unevenly as her heart beat at an impossible speed. It had been such a long time since she had acted such a fool. The creepy music continued to play. Using the weak light, she could see the pupils of her reflection in the mirror start to shrink. In the mirror, the mosquito net behind her was opening on its own. The face of a paper mannequin showed itself, and from the reflection in the mirror, she could clearly see that it was smiling at her. "Who's there?" A human being's normal go-to reaction during extreme fear was anger and aggression. Gao Rushui turned around, but there was nothing there. She ran toward the mosquito net to yank it open to take a look at what was really behind it. However, the design of the net was more complicated than she expected. It had many different layers, and the netting was connected to the bed itself. Instead of untangling the net, Gao Rushui got herself stuck in the netting instead. Right then, she could hear footsteps coming from inside the room. "I'm not moving, so whose footsteps are those?" The disappearance of her junior combined with the effect of Black Friday had completely shattered Gao Rushui's psychology defense. The sound of the unknown footsteps was the last straw that ultimately broke the camel's back. Her legs turned to jelly, and she found herself unable to move. Fear was like an uncaged animal, tearing at her sense of rationality. Gao Rushui yanked on the netting, trying her best to untangle herself from it, but it was to no avail. The sound of footsteps became suspiciously close. Impossible. The room is only so big, if someone was coming near, I'd definitely be able to see it. Her heart was a chaotic mess. to the extent that even the simple decorations inside the room were sending chills down her spine. The white lantern outside the window swayed in the wind, causing the light in the room to dim. Her reflection in the bronze mirror started to blur. Gao Rushui's pupils shook because she realized the reflection in the mirror was no longer herself, but a strange woman in a wedding dress. In more ways than one, the woman's appearance seemed like she was dressed to kill. Her beauty had an ethereal quality to it. It was frighteningly captivating, like looking at a recently unearthed piece of art. Staring at the woman in the mirror, Gao Rushui's lips quivered, and fear appeared on her face for the first time. From her experience dealing with so many autopsies, she was familiar with the feeling the woman in the mirror was giving her. This was the face of a dead person. The haunted house is hiding a real dead body. Just as this thought entered her mind, fear swallowed her like a giant wave. She tried her best to run away from the bronze mirror, and as she staggered back, she knocked into something. At the same time, the sound of footsteps stopped, and Gao Rushui's mind went completely blank in that moment. Having lost the ability to think, she turned instinctively to look behind her. Meeting her gaze was a woman in dead man's makeup and wedding dress. She smiled at her. "Ah!" The piercing scream shattered the quietness of the haunted house. It could be heard even outside the building itself. With her arms still entangled in the netting, Gao Rushui's legs finally gave, and she collapsed to the ground. The suppressed fear manifested as tears, which fell uncontrollably. Her eyes were screwed shut, and her mouth was slightly open. The woman started to dry heave. "Xiao Wan, quickly bring her out." "Okay." The female ghost standing before Gao Rushui removed her Bluetooth earpieces that were hidden under her hair and squatted down to say, "The experience ends here. Please catch your breath. I'll lead you out now." 10 seconds later, the exit to the Minghun scenario was pushed open. Chen Ge rushed over in a hurry and asked, "There's only one. Where's the other one?" "Fuck!" He San's first reaction was to raise his arm to punch at the face. However, the owner of said face seemed to have predicted his reaction because it easily swiveled away from his assault. "Ghost! Help!" He San collapsed to the floor and half crawled, half ran in a random direction. "He San! Don't sprint around aimlessly!" Gao Rushui yelled at the top of her lungs when she saw a red shadow follow He San into the building he chose to hide in. "The side houses are for the sons and daughters. This is bad. The place He San has gone into was the living area for the specter before she died." Gao Rushui rushed outward, but she realized the door had locked. She banged on the wooden door, cursing, "Divide and conquer? Isn't this just a haunted house attraction? Is it really necessary to do such a sick thing?" The coffin had broken in pieces, and the paper mannequins littered the floor. Gao Rushui, who was trapped, had completely lost her collected composure. She punched and kicked at the door and finally got it to open 1 minute later. However, in that 1 minute, everything outside the main house seemed to have changed. "Xiao-san? He-san!" Gao Rushui shouted twice, but there was no answer. Other than the eerie background music, there was only the shuffling sound of paper money brushing against each other as her reply. "What's going on? The haunted house is only so big, so it is impossible for He-san not to have heard me, or did some accident befall him?" For a reason Gao Rushui couldn't explain, an image of a crime scene flashed across her mind. She trailed down the corridor and found her way to the West House by tracing her memory. Xiao San ran in this direction earlier. As the old wooden door creaked open, the celebratory calligraphy written on white paper fluttered to the ground. Gao Rushui stepped into the room. The room was decorated as a newlywed room, but instead of red, the color of celebration, all the decorations were white, the Chinese funereal color. It was creepy to say the least. Where has he run off to? The atmosphere in the room was off. The only light source was the white lantern hanging outside the door. Gao Rushui stepped slowly forward as cold drafts blew in from behind her. Her exposed skin was chilled like there were small invisible hands in the air caressing her skin. The paper money crunched under her feet, and occasionally she would kick something hard that she could not tell the identity of because it was too dark. She gritted her teeth and powered on. Gao Rushui pulled the drapes in the room open to let some of the light in. The place was empty other than a bed that was covered underneath a mosquito net, as well as a set of bronze mirrors that sat facing each other next to the wall. I saw He-san run into this room with my own 2 eyes. Only 1 or 2 minutes have passed since then. So he could not have disappeared so soon? Unless the exit is in this room and He-san accidentally stumbled across it? Gao Rushui took a deep breath before deciding to perform a closer examination of the room. However, as she took the first step, she heard a second set of footsteps falling closely behind hers. "Who's behind me?" She whipped around, but she only saw a bronze mirror and her reflection in the mirror itself. "Son, keep calm." "Look, doesn't he look possessed?" After a few more minutes in the sun, He-san finally became more like himself. He scratched the back of his head and blushed with shame when he realized the whole crowd was staring at him. "Are you feeling better? Why did you faint inside the haunted house?" Uncle Shu in the park uniform passed a bottle of water to Hassan. "I actually cannot recall for sure what had happened. I was so scared and ran into the first door that I saw. There was a bronze mirror on the wall, and I remembered someone calling my name, but I can't remember what happened after that," He-san said, with a face filled with confusion. "Perhaps it's something set up by the haunted house? There's a scenario related to a mirror inside the haunted house." Uncle Shu turned toward Chen Ge, who was not looking so good. Chapter 11. How do you sleep at night? When Isan mentioned that his fainting had to do with mirror, Chen Ge's heart skipped a beat. He was instantly reminded of the game from the previous night and how the thing inside the mirror had been stopped from escaping by the doll. From the look of it, the creature still had not left, hiding the mirrors of the haunted house. "Boss, is this a new thing just added to the haunted house? How come I've not heard of it before?" Shu Wan also wandered over, pulling the gaze of the crowd along with her. Chen Ge was caught in an awkward position. He could not just confess that there was an actual ghost living inside the haunted house, could he? If he did that, the haunted house would be forced into closure, but more than that, he would be dragged to the mental hospital. Interesting, my backside. A man fainted. It's a haunted house visit, so why should we put our lives on the line? He's right. I'll forget about my broken phone as long as you don't post any more weird-ass videos in the middle of the night. Thanks, but no thanks. As Chen Ge extended the invitation, the crowd stepped away from him in unison. He laughed awkwardly. "Why are you all acting like that? My haunted house is really not that scary." "Bro, we have 2 forensic science students who deal with dead bodies every day here. One is in tears and the other fainted. Now you're telling us your haunted house is not scary? Who are you lying to? How can you lie without batting an eye?" "That's right, have some morals." The comments from the crowd stumped Chen Ge. Initially, when the haunted house was supposedly not scary, no one wanted to visit because apparently it was too boring. Now, when it was finally scary, it seemed to have overshot the effect he wanted. "But you came from all over the country just to stand at the entrance and watch. Guts can be trained. An occasional scare here and there will be able to increase your heart rate, thus improving your blood circulation. Even if you give us money, we're not going into that place. And improve blood circulation some more, you might as well say your haunted house can cure cancer." The man who had his phone broken retorted before turning to leave. However, right then, a middle-aged uncle standing beside him suddenly raised his voice to say, "Boss, give me a ticket." His voice was firm, like he had come to this decision after much contemplation. Fuck, there really are thrill-seekers everywhere. "Uncle, don't be rash. Other haunted houses take your money, but his haunted house takes your life." "Uncle, you've impressed me with your courage. Go on, don't worry. You can leave your wife and your daughter with me." The uncle looked to be over 40, and his head was balding. He walked out from the crowd and gave Chen Ge $10. "One ticket, please." "You're doing this alone?" Even Chen Ge was impressed by this middle-aged man. He dared to do this after witnessing what had happened earlier. After taking the money, Chen Ge gave the uncle his ticket. He was about to go through his introductions when the uncle took the ticket and walked off in the other direction from the haunted house's gate. "Uncle, the door is right this way." "I know." The uncle did not turn back and continued to walk to a rather photogenic spot. He pulled out his phone to mess with the camera angle until he managed to encapsulate most of the haunted house building in the frame. He snapped 2 pictures before posting them to his Facebook. The weather today is perfect for a day out. I personally recommend this Western Zhejiang City's House of Horrors. It scared the bejesus out of me when I visited the place, highly recommended. The crowd could not help but roll their eyes. All you did was stay at the entrance for about 20 minutes and purchase a ticket. You call that visiting the place? Before the crowd could say anything, the uncle already got likes and replies from his social circle. Xiao Li from Human Resources responded, "Brother Zhang, you're scared of even the common rat, but you dared to visit a haunted house today? My man, nice job." This means that the haunted house isn't that scary if old Zhang dares to visit it. Wicked grin, replied Wang Dayu. Dinner is served, come home soon. Old Ball and Chain's response was relatively off-topic. Precious daughter Wang Jing laughed. "Lol, Dad, we're all very familiar with the type of courage you have, so stop with the hapless struggle." The balding uncle didn't mind the comments, but replied with a mischievous smile. "Feel free to visit this place on your own. Since you all claim to be braver than I am, I'm sure none of you will be afraid to take up this challenge, right?" This series of actions had stunned the crowd. "Uncle, how cunning you are! To prove that you're not a scaredy cat, you're entrapping your very own wife and daughter." The man who had broken his phone stood beside the uncle and saw the whole process. Then, he rushed toward Chen Ge and demanded, "Give me a ticket as well!" Chen Ge had no explanation to this development, but since he was operating a business, he could not say no to his customers. After passing the young man his ticket, he saw the young man operate his broken phone to snap a picture and upload it onto Instagram with the caption, "God, what did I do? I realize I'm easily scared. Who can come to hold my hands as we challenge this haunted house together?" Reading through the many comments that appeared under his photo, the young man had a devilish smile on his face. "Give me 1 ticket, too." "Me too." 50% off, you say? Then give me 2. There was no visitor inside the haunted house, but the tickets in Chen Ge's hands quickly disappeared. In just a few minutes, about half the stack was gone. The crowd slowly dispersed, and Chen Ge started to happily count the day's earning. "Boss, the tickets we sold this morning are more than the total tickets we have sold in the whole month." Shu Wan squatted down beside Chen Ge, and the excitement in her eyes could not be suppressed. "We merely got lucky today. To make sure we have a constant stream of visitors, we have to improve on our content first." Chen Ge placed the cash inside his pocket and turned to head back inside the haunted house. It was then that he realized his victims of the day, Gao Rushui and He San, still hadn't left the scene. "Are you two feeling any better?" Chen Ge walked toward them with an offering of mineral water. After all, they were crucial to him having such good sales that day. "Yes, thank you, and sorry for the trouble," He San, who sat on the steps, uttered awkwardly. Beside him, the color still had not returned to Gao Rushui's face yet. Her gaze wandered between Chen Ge and Shu Wan before she said, "I have 2 questions I want to ask, may I?" "Sure." Chen Ge nodded readily. "Number 1, inside the West House, I swore I saw this girl's face in the mirror, so how could she suddenly appear behind me?" Gao Rushui intended to get to the bottom of the truth. She had a hard time coming to terms with that fact that she had been so scared that she cried. "You think that's a normal mirror, but it's actually not. It's actually a triangular pillar with mirrors on each side, but the 2 other sides are normally hidden behind the wall. It can be moved with a slight push. The exit to the Minghun scenario is actually behind the mirror. Regarding the woman you saw in the mirror, it was merely a picture that was pasted at particular angle. Using lighting effects, the other mirror, and optical illusions, it creates the illusion that you're looking at a real person. Xiao Wan was actually hiding behind the mirror. The sound of footsteps you heard was merely a sound effect." Gao Rushui nodded after listening to Chen Ge's explanation. "All right. The second question." She pointed at Shu Wan. "This lady is obviously alive, but how come looking at her, I have this feeling that I'm looking at a dead body?" Chapter 12. Wheel of Misfortune. Due to her field of study, the time Gao Rushui spent in the company of dead bodies was far greater than the time she spent around living human beings. She was not good at social events, but that did not bother her much because she felt more comfortable in the presence of dead bodies after all. "Our haunted house employs a special makeup technique, and that combined with the unique environment of the haunted house, creates nothing more than an illusion in your mind. The mortician's makeup as well as Black Friday were something that he could not attempt to explain even if he tried to. Therefore, he answered the question broadly and quickly moved the conservation away. If there are no more questions, I'll need to get back to work. Thank you for visiting us today. After saying goodbye to the two students, Chen Ge ordered Shu Wan to go clear up the props in the Ming Hun scenario while he returned to the main control room alone. What really happened to He-san was known to Chen Ge alone. The creature in the mirror hadn't left and was still hiding inside the haunted house. Letting it stay will only create more problems for me in the future. This was his first time dealing with a nightmare mission, so he had not expected that it would have such complicated repercussions. After turning off the background music, Chen Ge pulled out the surveillance camera to focus on the few minutes after He-san entered the West House. After flipping through the videos captured from multiple angles, he soon discovered something. It was at 24 minutes and 11 seconds past 9 o'clock that He-san ran into the West House. He was running about like a headless chicken. At 24 minutes and 14 seconds, when his eyes fell on the bronze mirror, a very curious image appeared on screen. The originally frantic He-san became suspiciously calm after he saw the mirror. He stood before the mirror completely immobile. Chen Ge would have thought the video had stopped, if not for the ticking time frame on screen. At 24 minutes and 17 seconds, He-san suddenly raised his left hand and started to walk slowly toward the mirror. It looked like someone or something was dragging him toward the mirror. At 24 minutes and 20 seconds, Shu Wan, wearing a wedding dress, ran into the room from the open door. By then, He-san's upper body was almost touching the mirror, and there was a flash of something in the mirror that was captured by the camera. Right after that, He-san fainted to the ground. It was Xiao Wan's arrival that interrupted the creature's plan. Chen Ge played the video on loop. Plenty of stuff happened in those 10 seconds. He rubbed his temples, but he could not come up with a good solution. Until I can come up with a more permanent solution, it looks like the only thing I can do now is cover up all the mirrors in this haunted house. Chen Ge wandered back to the props room to grab several black clothes before returning to the Ming Hun set. "Boss, why are you here? Just leave the cleaning up to me." Shu Wan saw Chen Ge while she was picking up the paper mannequins and paper money to put them back into coffin. "I came to inform you of something. Temporarily stop using all the props and scares related to mirrors in the haunted house. Also, when you're working, make sure to stay away from mirrors." Chen Ge carried the black cloth as he helped Zhu Wan close the fake coffin. Zhu Wan was baffled by Chen Ge's orders, but she didn't ask. After fixing all the props in the main house, Chen Ge entered the West House alone. The white lantern cast its weak light into the room. He stood at the spot where He-san fainted and stared quietly at the bronze mirror. Someone lives inside the mirror? Could there really be another world inside the mirror? Chen Ge touched the icy surface of the glass and stared at his own reflection for a long time. He could not pinpoint it, but he felt like something was off. When I handed He-san the bottle of water earlier, he used his right hand to take it, which means that he's not left-handed. However, in the video, he raised his left hand. Why would he do something that is opposite of his usual habit? Was he taken control of by the thing in the mirror? Chen Ge placed his left hand on the mirror, which aligned perfectly with his mirrored right hand. After all, everything is inverted inside the mirror. After covering the mirror with a black cloth, Chen Ge pulled out the black phone. This is where it all started. The creature appeared because of this phone. Therefore, it makes sense that if I wish to vanquish it, I'll need the help of this phone. He opened the app with the haunted house icon and soon noticed some changes to the interface. The daily visitor number and monthly visitor number had each increased by 2. Under the window for unlockable scenarios, a trial mission had just become available. After clicking on it, the message said that after finishing the mission, the scenario that it corresponded to would be unlocked. The design of this game seems fair enough. Completing a mission will earn me a reward, and the level of the reward directly corresponds to the difficulty of the mission. If I wish to expand this place further and deal with the thing inside the mirror, I'll need to continue finishing these missions. He could only do one daily mission each day, so Chen Ge's eyes naturally wandered toward the trial mission. Murder by midnight. A dangerous psychotic patient wandered about a fallen apartment. Scissors and mallets as hands, he is just wandering outside of your room. Mission venue, Western Countryside's Ping An Apartments. Mission requirement, reach the mission venue before 23 today. Look for the party responsible for the murder and survive until dawn. Mission hints, he hides among the crowd like a wolf among a group of sheep. His kind exterior hides a sickened heart. Do you wish to accept this mission? Warning. Trial missions are only available for 24 hours. If they are not accepted within these 24 hours, the scenario will never be unlocked. Chen Ge still had some reservations initially, but he decided to accept it after reading the last sentence. Let come what may. Things are finally looking up for the haunted house. I can't give up on any opportunity that will make it better. After accepting the mission, he scrolled down. The haunted wheel of misfortune had been activated without him knowing. Chen Ge clicked on it out of curiosity, and a line of words appeared on screen. The decree of life and death is never the decision of man. Fortune and misfortune are only 1 inch apart. We have both spirit fruits to increase your lifespan, as well as hatred-filled, baleful specters. Activating the wheel after collecting the visitor's scream for the first time. You've been given a free spin for the first activation. A scream will be collected when it is over 70 decibels. After collecting 100 screams, they can be traded for a chance to spin the wheel of misfortune. 100 screams for 1 spin? Chen Ge frowned reading this detail. This wheel is horrible on so many levels. The condition for activating it is already so difficult, but the result is still randomized. If the result is a baleful specter, then wouldn't it have been a complete waste? Chen Ge looked at the box that said he had 1 spin left, and he felt like pressing it. This feeling was similar to when one saw a message appear on one's phone. It might just have been an advertisement, but one felt compelled to open it. I mean, what can possibly go wrong? Chen Ge told himself, and as his finger tapped the screen lightly, the wheel started to turn. As long as it's not a baleful specter, I'm fine with anything.